Hi everybody and welcome back. So in this video, this would be part 2 of the review on the Cougar MX330 non-pro, and then the next recording I'll show you the MX330 Pro. So let's do this one first. So this is the Cougar MX330 with the side tempered glass, right? So and in this build, I installed the LGA 775 with a Core2Quad 9550 92 millimeter Cool Master. So let me show you that really quick. Right, Cougar MX330G, and let me see. And like I showed you in the other video, there's two case fans here. But to install them, I mean, if you want to replace them, it comes with two regular Cougar fans. But I replaced them, right? So you have to simply put your hand underneath the cover and then carefully pop it. And then there's some plastic clips here along the sides, here and here. And this is the old-fashioned style case. So this header is connected to the cover. So you have to be careful that once this is all connected, if you want to replace the fans again, you have to carefully pop it a little bit and then try to get your hand in here. Just pull the cover off a little bit because you can't, because the cables are connected to the motherboard. Right, so keep that in mind. Ideally, you want to replace the fans and don't mess with the fans ever again. And what else? There's a filter in here. I took it off. There's a filter on the back of this, so you have to pop it off and remove the filter and throw it away. Because usually with these budget cases, the fans don't really blow and suck air really well. So that filter is just going to cause a restriction. Unless you live in a really dusty house or something. I don't really get dust on my computers as really bad. So I don't know. Maybe I'm lucky. Let me see. So this is a tempered glass. So here's the three screws. Let me show you how that is. This is the old style, the old-fashioned style. It's just got a screw, and there's a standoff. I think this is a standoff for a motherboard standoff. They're using the same standoff that you would see on a motherboard. So that's how this one works. I kind of like it. It's just a lot simpler, this design. But most modern cases, they got rid of that design. I don't know. Most people don't like it, I guess. Let me show you the glass really quick. So this is the glass panel that you're going to get. Yeah, it doesn't feel that light, but it's not that heavy. So this is a little bit thicker than something at the hardware store, right? It feels a little bit thicker. But you got to really be careful because even modern cases, they still do this. So if you pull out a piece of glass like this and it doesn't have a frame on it, then you have to be extra careful that you don't drop it because it'll shatter. And then usually you can't get a replacement glass. So, and not only that, if this shatters on the floor, it's going to make a mess because it turns into little pieces of glass, and it's dangerous because you'll try to pick it up and it'll get into your skin and cause all kinds of damage, and then you'll have like these glass splinters. So, oh my God, it's really dangerous messing with this stuff. So, try not to either put it somewhere like on a pillow or something. And make sure you don't drop it. On some of the modern cases, it actually has a metal Yeah. Yeah, on some of the modern ones, it actually has a piece of metal around the perimeter to help protect the cover from breaking, right? So let me see what else. Oh, okay. So let me see here. Yeah, I guess. Let me see what else is different about this case. Yeah, in the top you only have support for two, right? 120, 120, so that's 240. So in this particular build, I just used the fan on this side, blowing down and into the case, and in the back end, I left it open because of to give myself room there for the extension cord, right? For the CPU extension cord, I left this part open, and I just put a fan here. That way, you know, when you plug this into the motherboard, you have there's room for this extension to be up there. So for me, it's just more practical. And in this older case, I don't have any ARGB or LED or anything, so nothing lights up. Okay. And yeah, for the so the motherboard, like I think I showed you on the other review video, it's a Gigabyte LGA 7775, right? And it has 4 slots, so 2 gigs each. Each slot takes 2 gigs of DDR2 800 megahertz. So you have 8 gigabytes total. I think only like the very top end, very expensive motherboards that are 775 can you get, what do you call it? Yeah, I'm almost sure about that. It's rare, but there's a few LGA 775 boards that support DDR3 and you can get 16 gigs. But yeah, 16 gigs of DDR3, but it's a very rare, very expensive motherboard to get 775 on DDR3. But there's a few out there. And another problem is if it's DDR2, I don't know what chipset it is, but there are DDR2, and you can get 4 gigs of DDR2 making 16 on DDR2, but that is also very rare. So, which kind of sucks because, like I say, really, like if you're playing a lot of video games, a lot of video games want to go over 8 gigs of system RAM. So I don't know what to tell you. Play older games, I guess. So, like for example, if you look at my other videos, I already load tested this in GTA 5. Right? Yeah, I load tested this in GTA 5. And yeah, system RAM climbed all the way to like 7,100 on the system RAM, and on the video card, I saw it all the way up to like 3,000, 3,100 on the VRAM of the video card, and that's running 1080p low. So who knows? Like I say, I think the CPU is too slow to that's going to really make a difference to put a stronger video card anyway. So I think that's kind of like where it tops out, at least in GTA 5. Maybe there's a few other games that you can raise the VRAM and the system RAM, but I don't know. Probably not. Like example, well, I guess like Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk would definitely, both of those would go up, but the problem is it won't launch. So the problem in Cyberpunk, it won't launch on this computer anyway. So there you go, right? So I don't know. So I guess it works out that 8 gigs of system RAM kind of works out. I do recommend though, like if you have a 775 board this old, update the BIOS and install a Core2Quad, because like I say, I don't see any point of using the Core2 Duos anymore. The problem is there's a lot of LGA 775 boards that don't support Core2Quad, so then you're SOL there. So I don't know, but yeah, if you want to mess around with if you want to experiment and tinker with 775, then I would say try to stick with the motherboards that support Core2Quad and motherboards that have 4 RAM sticks and that support 8 gigabytes of system RAM. That way, you know, at least you can play like GTA 5 at low settings. Okay, and let's see. The reason I like the MX330 cases, the old one, and the Pro version, which is a little bit larger case, is that they support the DVD drive, right? So it has a slot here. You just pop out the slot, and then you put in your DVD drive, and then you just install one screw here for the DVD drive, and then on the back end, right? Oh. And then on the back end, you put a screw right here, and you put right here, right? And then, yeah, the only 2 things you plug in a DVD drive is a SATA cable right here, and then right next to it you put the SATA cable, you know, an additional SATA cable, you put it up here, and then you know, one of your SATA cables from the power supply, you run it up here and plug it into the DVD drive, and then yeah, then your DVD drive should work. You know. What else? And oh yeah, the extensions. Almost nobody really talks about this, right? The extensions. Whether, you know, like I would recommend, if you don't care about color extensions, I recommend you get at least you know, the cheaper non-braided color, you know, just plain black extensions. You know, I think this is as cheap as you can get it, just bare wire, right? This makes it, I like to use extensions now and everything because just for the practicality is to install them when you want to install the motherboard and in and out. This makes it more practical. And another reason is with extensions you can replace the power supply a lot easier, because for example on this motherboard, try to remember, like, before you put the motherboard into the case, plug in at least plug in the CPU connector and the 24-pin connector, the 20, 24, or the 4 into the motherboard. Plug them both in, make sure they're fully seated while it's on the table, and then, you know, work these in. You put the motherboard into the case and put these connectors into the holes, because sometimes, especially like what happens on this one, you'll find out, you'll get a rude awakening. You know, a lot of these older cases, they weren't like really properly designed, so you don't actually pay attention until you figure it out yourself. So on this case, for example, it's not properly designed. So like I say, you see there's a cutout for the CPU hole right here, but guess what? You can't get this connector on. You know, like if you put the motherboard in here, and then you put your power supply, and let's say you don't have an extension, you try to run this here, and you'll find out that this plastic connector, there's not enough room to fit between the motherboard and this slot. There's enough room for bare wire, right? There's enough room for bare wire, but there's not enough room for the plastic connector. So what you have to do, and you should, I would recommend that, make that a habit, that when you have the motherboard on the table, put these 2 connectors on, plug them into the motherboard, right? And then what you do, you know, of course you're gonna lay down the motherboard on the table or whatever, or a little bit like that, offset. And then as you drop the motherboard in, you wanna you want to work. You want to work at least this one. I think this one might not is okay. So on this particular, there's enough room. See, yeah, there is enough room. So this is the critical one. The CPU one on a lot of cases, you want to make sure this is plugged in, and as you drop in the motherboard, get this connector through that hole as you drop the motherboard, because what's going to happen is as you install the motherboard onto the case, the motherboard is going to close down on this, and then you won't be able to pull that in. So that's what you want to do, right? So if you can imagine that, right? Yeah, as you install that motherboard, you want to like fish. You want to fish the connector, right? Like that. You want to fish the connector like that, and then completely drop the motherboard in, because that way it's already connected. So I've seen that in a lot of old cases. So make that a habit of plugging this one in, and I would say plug this one in too, because sometimes it's just harder when it's already in there. This is a lot easier to do on the table. So that's a little tip. And also with the cooler, like this cooler is a lot easier to install when it's on the table. So both plugs and the cooler mounted onto the motherboard, and then I would say install all the sticks on the table, and then put the motherboard into the case. That's what I do, or I try to do for most of them. Okay, so let me see what else on this particular motherboard. Oh yeah, this case does have USB 2.0, the old-fashioned USB plug that you plug into the motherboard, and it also has the modern USB 3.0 plug. So on this older motherboard, it doesn't have USB 3, but it does have two sets of USB 2.0 on the bottom here. So what you have to do is, if you want to have all the ports working, is you buy the USB 2.0 to 3.0 adapter, and you plug it into your 3.0, and then you plug it into the USB 2. So that's what I did right here. So basically all of these are working, but all of them are running at USB 2.0. So this is on USB header, the first one, and this is USB header, the second one, but they're all 2.0, right? What else? And yeah, I think this was the power button's up here, right? The power button's here, and I believe, yeah, that's the reset button, and that works. And the audio, right? The audio jacks, that's working. The DVD drive works if you plug it in, of course. What else? Yeah, we said, yeah, there's a filter here. Just remove it. Don't forget your two fans, 120, 120. It doesn't have a fan for the power supply shroud. These two fans only supply air. They're right here, and they only supply air to the main compartment, if you need to know that. Because like on some cases, on some modern cases, you can get a third, like 1, 2, 3, or is it 1, 2? Like on some of the other ones I got here, you can put one fan down here, and it's blowing partially into the power supply area and partially into the compartment, and then the second fan is blowing completely dedicated to the compartment only. That's what I prefer. I prefer to blow some fresh air into the, I prefer blowing some fresh air down here to the, to the hard drive area, but you can't do it on this one. And let's see what else you need to know on this board. Oh yeah, this board is kind of weird. It's got the HD audio jack right here by normally you see the the rear AC plug, rear fan, the rear chassis fan plug is right here. The HD audio is right next to it, and I've seen that on the FX boards too, so it must be an old school thing. It goes here. On most motherboards, the HD audio jack is here in the very bottom, but on this one's here. So if you see that, you got to route the wire along here, underneath the rear fan, and then run it across the back of the case to reach back here, right? So you know, you run the wire here, and then you go down, and then underneath the chassis, underneath the rear fan, and then you plug it in. If you need to know that. And then in this case, the CPU plug is right there. And then over here we got the CPU plug. The fan I picked on here is a Cooler Master 92mm, and it's more than enough cooling capacity, right? Yeah. It's the 92mm Cooler Master is more than enough cooling capacity for this Core2Quad Q9550. Clock speed of only 2.83. I didn't overclock it or anything like that. And then what else? Oh yeah, I had to use a fan splitter because this board doesn't have a lot of fan headers on it. So I used a fan splitter to power up these fans. And then this top fan has its own header. So I only used one fan splitter so I can power up the front chassis. The Wi-Fi card goes in the very first slot. The second slot is open. The third slot is for the video card. And the fourth slot is for the video card as well, right? And then on the very bottom is USB. And then the front pin header is right there. Right here is this corner is for the SATA plugs. For you know, you can power up your 2.5 SSD or your hard drive. And let me see. This case does have provisions here on the back. Right here, there's a little case. You get two hard drive sleds. You know, which is kind of funny because. You get these nice hard drive sleds like you see on a Dell OEM or a Hewlett Packard, I think. So you do get two sleds here. If you want to get fancy, you can use them for your 3.5s. Or if you got an SSD, just throw it in there, right? That's what I did. And let me see, anything else weird here? Well, I think that's it for the front. The video card is a nice simple GTX 950 single fan, right? I don't know if you can see that, right? Single fan GTX 950. It uses a 6-pin plug, right? And you know, I don't get triggered because I know everybody gets triggered, but with the color extensions, I usually this connector. Here, let me just show you. Usually like on I think everybody content creators, you know, when you plug in this, right? I don't know, for whatever reason, every single content creator, and everybody on the comments, everybody gets triggered. This connector, like, you know. Like you'll see that on every single video out there. No matter how short, I think these are too short, but this is the standard length. I think it's like 12 inches or 13 inches or something like that. And I think it's too stupid short. But anyway, every content creator will show you, like, you plug this in and this part must be behind the motherboard like that. But the problem is, how I see it is, it's not long enough, right? That's the thing that's why I get triggered. So this hole is, you see that, and then the connectors right here. Hey, bro, that's not long enough. And and this one doesn't have any holes right here. And even if it did, what if I don't want to put it through there? I mean, this might make sense if the hole's right here, and you do it like this, right? And sometimes I do that, but you know. I mean, that's really not a concern for me. So what I usually do is I just plug it, and then I just leave this connector on this side of the case, and it shows, right? And then I'll get that in the comments section all the time, like, oh, bro, you don't know how to wire. You don't know how to wire aesthetically. You know, so I figure I figure I'll say that, and I'll say it again on every build I do it. I'm gonna have to remind you guys. Yes, I know, but this is how I like to do it, right? Bruh, it's my computer. I'm not flipping PCs, all right? So this is my own computer for the house. So I find it more practical to leave these connectors on this side. I mean, it's a case-by-case basis because, like I say, I feel these are too short, you know. I mean, if this was twice as long, that's different. Then I could do something more fancy, and I can have this connector in the back. But then I'm sure somebody in the comment section would say, oh, but that wire looks too long. I heard someone else told me that. Like, bruh, that wire is too long. You should push it further back into the case and hide it. So what do you mean, why? Why do I have to do it that way? You know? So I don't know. I don't know why nobody cares, but I think it's a bad habit to like have this connector here and then you want to like bend it like this, like really tight. Like that, you know. I think that's not bueno. I never agreed to that. You know, I think ideally you don't want to stress any connector, or have a problem a connector pulling out of the plastic connector. And that's happened to me a few times already, because these aren't really as reliable as OEMs. So always be careful. Make sure they're fully inserted. And don't be surprised if one of these start to work out. And, you know, that could be dangerous. So you're going to create a short or something. So make sure, you know, when you finish your build, that you go in here and you make sure that all the connectors haven't worked. And none of these wires have worked itself out of the connector, because that's not bueno. No bueno, right? So I figured I'd mention that because someone in the comment section is going to get triggered, you know. But like I say, it's my computer. You know, it's for the house. I like it like this. I prefer, to me, it's more practical to have the connector on this side. Plus, it's like I say, I love the idea of having these connectors right here, and I can quickly replace the power supply by just, you know, pulling this out and go boop, 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 and just replacing it, you know. So that's why I like to use the connectors for. It's to replace the power supply easily, just in case. And it's just a lot easier because my fingers hurt every time you try to connect or disconnect these connectors. Sometimes you can't really get in here, and God forbid if you have to disconnect that CPU connector in the corner, you know, it's a mess. Sometimes it's really hard to get in there, or you risk having a break. You know, you're trying to pull it out here, and at the same time you're trying to squeeze this, and you're trying to work it like this, and you know, you hope and pray you don't break the plastic connector on the motherboard, and then what? You know, you're SOL, right? So yeah, that's why that's two main reasons I do that, because you know, I don't want to be having to worry about connecting or disconnecting those connectors from the motherboard. And I love the ease of use of being able to replace the power supply, you know. But that's me, right? Okay, so, well, that's my little rant. This one has a basement. Not every computer has a basement. So this one has a basement shroud. So we talked about that, right? And on the back, this one's pretty easy, right? CPU connector. There's the 24 pin. Right, there's the fans, the few case fans I got, the SSD for Windows 11 goes here. Oh yeah, that's right. Even though on 775, at least on the previous version of Windows 11 23H, I think it's called 23 version 23. That one works on Windows 11 23 is working with these older motherboards. So I think somebody said 24 is not working. So I guess you're going to be stuck on 23 for the time being, unless, you know, somebody comes up with some modified version of Windows 11 24 for older computers. But right now 23 does work. Well, this one is a modified version. I downloaded one of those ISOs from those modders. There's a bunch of modders online where you can, where they're really good at, I don't know how they do that. They know how to like fix up the ISO, the original ISO, and they repack it so that you know, you can just throw it on there. So that's the one I use. For the older computers, I prefer to just use the modified ones. It's just it's just a lot easier. So for the brand new computers I got, yeah, then that's different. Then I'll just use the original ISO that you download from Microsoft. So, but on these older computers, I think it just makes more sense just to use the modified ones. And yeah, so the modified 23, that works. It'll install, and then the update, the Windows update does work. Windows Defender does work. But when I play a game or anything, I turn off Windows Defender, of course. You know, because every gigahertz helps, right? So I think that's it, right? There's nothing special back here, right? You know, and you know, I don't like to use too many zip ties, you know, because like I say, I'm not too crazy about putting any stress on anything. And the rear cover here is basically simple. It just slides in, right? And it uses 2 screws here, right? And here on the back end, nothing special, right? So that's nothing special there. And then here's the Wi-Fi with the Wi-Fi antenna. The second slot is just a cover. And then 3 and 4 is the video card. And the power supply, right? And here's a cover for the top of the slots on this one. It's a separate cover that you put on. And like I mentioned on the other video I made, you know, if you have these if you're using one of these old computer cases and it comes with these annoying bars, you know, then I recommend cut you know, with either pliers, you know, with special pliers. They call them sheet metal pliers, or wire cutters, or if you want to get fancy, take out your Dremel rotary tool, either electric or air operated, and then slice off the bars that you're going to use for the video card. You know, because what I always found annoying on most of these cases is this bar. Well, I think it's also the fault of the video card itself, because ideally, the DisplayPort and HDMI is not centered in the slot. You know, like the Wi-Fi, you know, like the Wi-Fi antenna, it's right in the middle, right? That would make sense. But for whatever reason, the DVI, look at that. See, the DVI is dead center, but you will almost never see the HDMI nor the DisplayPort right in the middle of the slot. It's always off-centered. And that's bogus, because then what happens, you know, is, let me see, do I have a connector here? Is this. Come on. Yeah, so what happens is the HDMI, you know, it's got this plastic connector, right? So when you plug it in, like right there, right? When you plug it in, this bar is in the way, so you know, you can only plug it in like a little bit over halfway, you know. And like I say, I'm not really sure, you know, how these cables are designed, if that's enough of a connection, you know. I can see the wire in there, like it does seem to be like right here on the edge. So I think technically you can plug it in only halfway and you're good, supposedly, allegedly. And you can't plug it in all the way because of these stupid bars. So I don't know, you know, or maybe I'm just being overcautious. But so what I do is, you know, when I build in a new case, I see if these stupid bars are here, and if they are, then I slice off the bars that are going to be in the way to prevent me from plugging it in all the way, you know, because most of these have this plastic connector going around, and this head is usually, you know, it'd be different. Like if this was like a little bit longer, then we're good. You know, if you sell me this with this metal plug, you know, a couple more millimeters, so that I can see that it's going all the way in, but that's not how you buy this. This is, I think this is the only length you get for the metal, right? So whatever that specification is, you're screwed. So I don't know. I mean, I never heard anybody talk about that, but I think it's wrong. But fortunately, I've seen like some of the brand new cases. There's no bars here anymore. This is like totally open, and also, you know, this is totally open, and all these are separate. So you can like take all the screws off and remove all of them or put them on, but you don't always get that. So that's my little tip, my little recommendation. If you see these stupid bars here, look at your motherboard, see where the video card slots are, and then slice off the bars around the video card area so that there's no obstruction. Yeah. If God forbid, if the video card is in the very first slot, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to use pliers and bend this lip out. And I did that for the other case. I'll show you that if it's on the very first slot. So it just depends, you know. I think that's it then. Let me see. So there's that, right? And then at the very bottom of the case, we have the power supply, and it comes with the simple this. It comes with a very simple power supply filter, you know. Usually I don't really put this on either, but that's me, right? But usually what I like to do is, you know, a lot of these filters I don't really care for or use, but I don't want to throw them away. So what I do is I put it, before I close up the case, I'll put these filters like, you know, like maybe right here, and then I'll throw the cover on. So, you know, that way I don't lose the filter. But, you know, that's just my idea, but that's what I use. Most of these filters, I don't use them, so I just attach them to the back of the rear case, and then I throw it on. So, and like I say, I don't know, maybe I'm lucky, but in this house, I don't really get much dust on my computers, so, or maybe I just don't use my computers enough, I don't know. But yeah, I don't really see that much dust. So that's I really don't, it doesn't make sense to have those air filters and then it's just going to be blocking fresh air in and out of the case. So what else? And I think that's it, right? We talked about the cables. Yeah. Video cards, Wi-Fi. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that is it. Oh, the last thing maybe I should talk about is for video cards. Let's talk about video cards really quick. So, you're still there, right? Okay. So for video cards, for 775, not just any video card, you're going to get a display. So here's an RX 580. I already tested this, and this doesn't show a display. See, I'm almost sure like the HDMI, if it's on an older TV or monitor, it might work. But if it's a new one like my Samsung, you can forget about HDMI. And the DVI, I haven't tested it because I don't have my DVI monitor is downstairs and I'm too lazy to bring it up right now. So sorry, I don't have time to test that right now. I did test the DisplayPort, and for some odd reason, the DisplayPort usually works. If you didn't know that, Radeon HDMI, no bueno. HDMI is not compatible in Radeon with a lot of, when you're combining old stuff and new stuff, you know, like old video cards, old motherboards, and then you try to use a new TV, HDMI, the standards have changed over the years. So one standard doesn't work with the other. And I think it's a Radeon thing too. So I don't know what the hell's going on. So, but DisplayPort usually works. DisplayPort usually works with old and new, and you can mix them up. Usually. But in this case, it didn't work. So I don't know what's going on. These two cards did work. So these gave me a BIOS display. I did get a BIOS. I did get a BIOS display on these, right? So this is HD 7570 and this is R7 450. So I assume HD, R7 and R9 video cards, you should get a display if you want to mess around with Radeon cards. If you want to be safe, you know, if you don't want to experiment and you just want a card that just works, then just stick with NVIDIA, right? Yeah, I don't know if you know that, but NVIDIA is very compatible friendly. This is a 3060, and you still get a display on that on 775. So, might not, you can imagine that. So, old BIOS, new BIOS, you still get a BIOS. Old TV, new TV. Old monitor, new monitor. Old video card, new video card. Old motherboard, new motherboard. And all the outlets work. HDMI will work, DisplayPort will work, and DVI will work. You know, so yeah, for whatever reason, I don't know, like I said, I don't know what the hell NVIDIA does differently than Radeon. But yeah, if you want full, mostly, I don't know if it's 100% true or not. But yeah, if you want 100% compatibility with DisplayPort, with HDMI, you want a 100% compatibility with any BIOS, old BIOS, new BIOS, old TV, new TV, old monitor, new monitor, old projectors, new projectors. Old motherboards, new motherboards. Then just stick with NVIDIA. Yay! NVIDIA. But yeah, if you got a bunch of Radeon cards, then I suggest you know, you start building up a collection, because you're going to need a lot of different kind of Radeon cards. And, you know, to mix and match and see which one works, you know. So with Radeon, be prepared that HDMI doesn't work. Try DisplayPort. Hopefully it works. So these two don't work. These two, on this particular motherboard, these didn't work. No HDMI didn't work. And DisplayPort didn't work either. Now, maybe DVI works. I don't know. Like I say, I don't really have, I put away my old monitor, so it's possible this might work with an older monitor. But right now, the monitor I've been testing out is my brand new Samsung monitor. So if you got a brand new Samsung, no bueno with older cards. Or it also could be because of the monitor, because I'm almost sure that on first generation Intel, I could see the screen. So it's just 1 year off, right? Because this is from 775 is generation 0. That's how I remember. Generation 0 is Core2Quad. So one generation newer, I believe the RX 550 worked. Yeah, I'm almost sure, you know. But just keep that in mind. Okay, so I think that's it for this video, and then let me close this up, because this is done. And I'll bring over the other one, the Cougar MX330 Pro version, which is the little bit bigger case. And I already threw in the i7-87 board, so I'll do that right now so you can see that one if you're interested. Bye.